Okay. Welcome back once again. This is the Liverpool Brothers podcast, and we are here to discuss and review the weekend games. We are going to talk particularly about Arsenal winning 1-0 against Newcastle at home at the Emirates. We'll also speak about Manchester City getting to the FA Cup final, beating Southampton by 2-1, and Chelsea also winning by 1-0 against Leeds United. Is this already a new manager bounce for Chelsea or not? We'll come back to that later on. Stana, how was your weekend? Which of the games did you enjoy most? These days, when we come, we are going to do match of the weekend. So you are going to give me your match of the weekend. What was your game of the weekend?
Game of the weekend. All the games were not so much exciting. Arsenal 1-0. I mean, Liverpool won 3-1, but not really an exciting game per se. Wolves Spurs also 1-0. Maybe I'll probably say City Southampton, although much of the excitement came at the latter stages of the game from probably the 70th minute to the end of the game. So maybe I'll probably go for that game.
Yeah, I also did enjoy that game very much. So I'll choose the City Southampton as my game of the weekend. But I also didn't watch Wolves against Spurs. But the fact that Spurs won their first Premier League game in 2026, I
In
would have gone for
16
that if I
games.
had watched the game. But I actually didn't catch a glimpse of the game. So, but I think that is a very big win. I've always said that with Spurs, I think they've made the right appointment with Roberto De Zerbi. It is a long-term plan for Roberto De Zerbi. You don't bring him in if your goal is to win now. No, I think he's that kind of manager who can build a team to a certain level, and then you can bring in your top manager to go from
Yeah.
there. So even if they get relegated, I think they should stick with him. He's going to bring them back into
Do
the
you think
Premier
they get
League
relegated
next
though?
season. I think they can't get relegated. I think they will. For now, I'm seeing West Ham surviving. So if West Ham survives, then it's only left with it's only left with Tottenham
I
to
think
go down. So
the most concerning part about Tottenham Hotspur's relegation fight is all the rest, West Ham, Leeds, they all have goals in them. Spurs do not have goals in them. They don't have goals in them. Even the 1-0 against Wolverhampton, very fortuitous goal that Palinya scored, that toe poke. It could very, very rightly so have ended goalless, and it would have been a fair result if it ended goalless because they played well the previous weekend when they drew 2-2 than they did winning 1-0 against. So, and if they play the way they played against Wolves, I don't think they win another game till the end of the season.
yeah, I think the fact that Roberto De Zerbi is in and he can change the squad, he can set up the team in the way that he likes. I think what is going to happen is that in the summer, a lot of players are going to leave. If they get relegated, they are going to go into the championship with a whole lot of changes, different players. And if those players are able to get them through back into the Premier League, sometimes you need a setback for you to actually rebuild. And I think that is what Spurs is going through. The kind of players, the profile of players, the culture within the team, everything has to change. And sometimes you need some of these setbacks, big setbacks, like going out of the top division to be able to come back stronger. But that's away from our main discussion today. Let's go back and look at Arsenal versus Newcastle United. I only watched bits and pieces of that game because I was watching the City versus Southampton game. But you could see whenever I switched to the Arsenal game, you could see the way Arsenal are playing. There's a whole lot of nerves in that game. Arsenal got
Yeah.
their goal again from set pieces. What did you make of that game, especially the goal they scored and how they managed to secure the win?
Um, I also didn't catch much of the City Southampton game because I was watching the Arsenal Newcastle game. I think Arsenal's setup for that game was as expected, and Havertz leading the line with Odegaard as just like they played against Manchester City the previous week. I think the only change they made was Ben White replacing Mosquera at right back. So similar setup. The game started, they were more front foot in terms of their defending, pressing up from the back. So the game was a bit end to end, but the game slowed down a little bit, and then Arsenal opened the scoring with kind courtesy of their set piece goal. This is their 17th goal they scored from a set piece, and it was a very good, well worked set piece goals. I'll give them that. They are good at what they do, and um, quite rightly, I think I have to give them credit for that. It was a very, very good goal from Eberechi to get that goal. And unfortunately for them, he went off injured. So that would be a big blow for them. Hopefully, it's not that serious. But that is how they scored their goal. And then it's like a bit of nerves from the Arsenal players. They weren't able to take the game to Newcastle. Because, I mean, Newcastle aren't really a great side of late since they
So
went out of the
I
Champions
just
League.
wanted to cut in very quickly. Do you think Arsenal still had the handbrake on? Mikel Arteta had the handbrake on because it looks like from the way things went, it looks like Mikel Arteta is doubling down on using set pieces to secure his goals and also trying to be solid at the back, making sure that they don't concede goals. He's going back to the basics, basically the beginning of the season, what he did to get here. And did you see that in the game, or you think Newcastle were the ones who made it difficult?
Yes, I think um, in his mind, he's like, this is what has gotten us here so far. So this is how we are ending it. And I listened to Ian Wright the week before, and he's an Arsenal man, and he was unsure if Arsenal are going to do it. And then just last week, he was like, he thinks Arsenal can do it now because he saw the way they played against City. And although they lost, if they are to play that same way against the other class in the running, I think if they play a similar way to the way they played against City, they win all those games. But then they went back again. The handbrake was on because after they scored that goal, at the end of the game, Newcastle had more possession. They had more shots on goal. In only the second half, Newcastle had 61% possession. And this is an Arsenal side trying to win the league, playing at home at the Emirates. This is a Newcastle side that Eddie Howe is under a lot of pressure. But Newcastle come to the Emirates in the second half and they are controlling the game for large parts. For large parts of the game, Newcastle were controlling the game in the midfield. In defense, they were popping the ball around. They just lacked the clinical edge. And if Juan Wisa, who got a very good chance to get the equalizer and the dying numbers of the game, if that goes enters the back of the net, the game would have turned out completely different, and everyone would have went back to blaming Arteta. But this is the running. You get the win, however you get it. So kudos to them for getting the 3 point. That's the most important thing. But this is the running where it may very well down go to goal difference. So you need to score goals. So if you get the first goal and then you pull the handbrake and not try to get the second goal, I mean, I saw people, especially the Arsenal fans, on other people who were criticizing Arsenal for the way they played and saying that those same people didn't say the same thing about City against Burnley. But City, even after scoring the first goal in the first 5 minutes against Burnley, they created a lot of chance that they could have scored from. They controlled the game, tried to get the second goal, and just didn't come. But that was entirely different from how Arsenal played after they got that first goal. So for Arteta, I mean, it's the same old saying. He went back to his old ways, but they got the 3 points, and I guess that's all that matters for them right now.
Yeah, so it is squeaky bum time, and Arsenal fans are really feeling the squeaks under their seats, and it's making a lot of noise. It
I
is
don't know if
making
you
a lot
saw
of
the reaction
squeaks.
of Arteta at the end of the game. It
I did
wasn't
see it.
joy;
I
it
did
was
see it, and I was quite
relief.
surprised. I don't think that was necessary because this is a home game against Newcastle. Newcastle have nothing to play for. Let's not forget that. They have
They
nothing
will
to play
call
for.
you. They will
They are not
call
going
you
to qualify for
celebration
Europe.
police.
No. This is not about celebration police. It's about mentality. I think the way you celebrate certain games, the way you talk about certain wins or losses, speaks a lot about your mentality.
He
It
says
has
he's on
nothing to do
fire.
with policing people. So my question would be now that looking
Yeah,
at how the running is, the fact that it could come down to goal difference, it could come down to goal scored. Do
yeah.
you think Arsenal's approach of just stinking the place out and making a goal to win the game is going to get them over the line?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is because I mean, I'm looking at this Manchester City side and the game that they won against City. Antoine Semenyo was absolutely off. And City can have games where some players are not even on their game, especially the attacking, and they still get the job done. I don't think this Arsenal side can have players having days off and then they still perform at a high level. So taking that into account and the goals that Arsenal, the way that Arteta is approaching these games, getting the first goal and shutting up shop, I don't see how I don't see them winning every single game. And frankly speaking, I don't see City winning every single game as well. But with that being said, I would put my money on Manchester City to get over the line because I've seen this movie before, and City have always come out on top.
Exactly. Exactly. Because when you compare City's result against Burnley and the way they played, it is the same result, but the approach was different. City were trying to get more goals in that game,
And you know,
and
it's now
City missed
12
a lot
games
of
in a row
chances.
where Arsenal have not created more than an XG of one. They've not created an XG of over one goal in 12 games consecutive in the Premier League. It's always below one.
Hmm. Hmm. So for me, that would be a concern. So that is why I'm a bit worried about the celebration. It was more like relief.
Yes.
They were showing a sense of relief, and I think that is how come we find ourselves here. How come Arsenal, as a club, find
Yeah.
themselves here? Because they've played every game for 90 minutes through to the 90th minute. They
Yeah.
don't win games early and rest
Uh,
and coast for the
yeah.
rest of
I
the game.
remember they are
They don't
still
do
in
that a lot.
Europe.
And
A
I think that is
two-legged
what
tie
has
against
caught up with
Atletico
them.
Madrid.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that could be a problem for them. But we
Yeah.
will see how the running goes. We are all excited about the way things are going right now. We want it to remain tight as it is until the very, very end. Let's look at City against Southampton. A lot of I think I'll be right when I say people thought it was going to be a walk in the park for City, but it wasn't. How? Why? Why was the game so difficult? Why did they turn out the way it did for City in that semi-final FA Cup game?
Yeah, I think too many changes. Too many changes. I think it was only on the right hand channel with Cherky and Matthias Nunes. They were the starters. Every single one of them was a change with Marmoush, Foden. We had a midfield pairing of Kovacic and then Nico Gonzalez. The back four, John Stones came in, Trafford in goal. So a lot of changes. And sometimes when you make too many changes like that, it disrupts the rhythm and the flow of the game. So that was a factor. I think those that came in also didn't cover themselves in glory, especially someone like Marmoush. He had um, some decision making in the final third. Sometimes his 1v1s. I thought he could take his man on, but it seems he lacks a bit of confidence. Phil Foden as well couldn't come to the party. He has struggled a lot after having quite a decent start to the season. He tailed off and now he's not really getting games. So those were things that hampered Manchester City. But a lot of credit also needs to be given to Southampton for the way they approached the game. They had a plan to be solid defensively, but also offer a threat at the other end of the pitch. And that eventually was rewarded in the second half when they got that goal, which was a very, very good goal from the Southampton player. But the timing of Doku's goal was also very crucial, that deflection goal. And it ultimately meant that Southampton couldn't hold on and their fire just got bent just at the end. And then City were able to get that winning goal. But I really didn't get a glimpse of the whole game. I mean, you were the one watching the game, so maybe you'd be better served um, telling me how Southampton were
Yeah,
able to give them a tough game.
yeah. I think Southampton came in with a plan. It was a very clear plan. You could see they had worked on it
Yeah.
and they knew exactly what to do. Even in the first half, Southampton created the better chances. They had the better openings. I would say, but for the lack of quality, Southampton should have
Yeah.
been a goal up in the first half because they had a couple of breaks where the finishing wasn't good or the final decision wasn't the best. And that is how come City were able to survive the first half without conceding. City had all the possession in that first half. But anytime Southampton won the ball back in deep areas, you could see they had rehearsed exactly what to do to get up the field. And it was so beautiful to watch. For me, I like defensive performances that come with transitional threat. If you are going to defend for 90 minutes, I have no problem with you. But if you don't carry any transitional threat, if you get the ball, you win the ball back in deep areas, and you are not able to cause any threats in behind the opponent, there is no point defending. And that is why I enjoy the performance of Southampton yesterday. Actually, yesterday, what happened was that immediately Pep made those changes to bring in his first team players, the regular guys. That is when
Yeah.
Southampton got the goal. And it was totally against the run of play. City were piling pressure on them. They were really turning up the gears, and then they got knocked by Southampton. So I think the equalizer by Doku came at a very, very good time because they needed something. They needed much because before then they hadn't really had anything. And the funny thing is that City had a lot of shots. It wasn't because they didn't have enough shots. They had a lot of shots,
I think they
but
recorded
most
something
of
like
those shots
25
were blocked.
shots.
Yes, and most of those shots were blocked. The goalkeeper also on that day for Southampton was very, very excellent. He made a lot of very, very good saves, and
Yeah.
that was what kept Southampton in the game. And you could see the desire to just defend with their lives. It was marvelous to watch because
You love a defensive
if
display.
yes, yes, this is the kind of defensive display that you
As
want to
long as
see
you
a
offer a
team.
threat at the other end.
Of course, because if you don't offer a threat, then what you are doing is basically waiting to be beat
Yeah.
because you don't have any threat. The opponent is going to keep growing in energy and in confidence. But whenever you receive the ball and you're able to threaten them on the counter, you put them on the back foot a little bit. When they are coming
Yeah.
forward, they are thinking about what is going to happen behind them. And that puts brakes on how much attack they can engineer. So I think it was a good plan from the Southampton manager. I don't know his name, but also another thing that I want to touch on, the calmness. You could see from the manager's face, he was absolutely calm. He didn't care about the fact that he was playing against Pep.
Well, he's German.
And I compare him
He's
to
called
Arteta's
Eket.
behavior when he's playing against Pep or when he's under pressure. He tries to do a bit too much. I think sometimes the way you behave on the sidelines as a manager also feeds into the way the players feel. If you are behaving as if you are nervous or you are too anxious, the players also feel the same. But if
Yeah.
you exude calmness, the players are going to remain calm. They are going to play their game. And I think that is what Southampton did yesterday to try and make that game very, very difficult. It nearly ended up going to extra time, nearly. But for that excellent strike from Nico Gonzalez. I don't know
Yeah.
if you saw that goal and
Yeah. Saw
what
that
do you
goal.
what do you make of the finish? Because we don't see
Um.
him score such goals a
Yeah, we
lot.
don't see him score a lot. I mean, I switched my channel to that game after I saw that Southampton had scored the goal. So I watched both goals live, Doku's goal, and then few minutes after I saw that goal also going. So I was quite surprised none of the Southampton players actually went to close him down because he had decided to take the long shot. He weighed before he eventually took it, but no one really was able to close him down. But it was a beautiful strike, taking nothing away from him. So it's good that he also got that goal because he is coming in as a replacement for Rodri. I think Rodri is not really fit. So if Rodri is not fit and he is to come in the running, I think he will be very important, and this goal will do him a lot of good in terms of his confidence.
Yeah. So I think Southampton were tiring a bit. That is how come nobody was able to close him down for that goal. But let's move on to Chelsea briefly before we end. I don't know if you saw the Chelsea game. I didn't see it, but they won by 1-0 against Leeds United. And now the final game is set between Manchester City and Chelsea. And it is always quite surprising that in spite of Chelsea's difficulties in recent years, they've been to a lot of finals. They've been to a lot of finals. Not least
Yeah,
last season, I think last 2 seasons Liverpool played them in the Carabao Cup final 2 seasons
yeah.
ago. They've played in the Club World Cup final. They've been to the Conference League final, and now this season again they are in another final. So
Yeah, I
it
think
hasn't been too
they've
bad
lost
for
something
Chelsea
like their
so
last
far.
5 consecutive cup finals. They've lost every single one of them. The FA Cup, the Carabao Cup. We won 3 against them, and I think even as far back as the 2020s, Leicester City's FA Cup, they won it against Chelsea. Arteta's first FA Cup, the one Aubameyang won for them, that was also against Chelsea. So they've been in finals for a while, but they found a way to lose every single one of them in recent years.
So are you trying to say that they are going to lose this final against City?
Yes, I think they will lose it again. But just a minute on that game. I thought the selection from the interim manager was quite good. I like that he benched Cole Palmer for the game because Cole Palmer being in that game and as the number 10, he's been their best player for quite a number of years now. So it's quite difficult to put him on the bench, but he had the balls to decide to put him on the bench and then put Caicedo alongside Romeo Lavia, and then Enzo was allowed to be the advanced midfielder of the three. And then he played Neto in his favorite position on the right wing. Then he played Garnacho on the left. And then Joao Pedro was the one that led the line. I thought Robert Sanchez had a very good game. He went the way Leeds United were going man for man. So for quite a number of times, he had to go long. So his long balls were pretty accurate. He was finding Joao Pedro, was finding Pedro Neto on the right hand side, and that is how Chelsea were able to advance into Leeds United's final third. I thought Garnacho could have done a lot better. I think he lacks so much confidence. I mean, Garnacho is a player that Chelsea fans really aren't really fond of him, but he's not a bad player per se. I think he's better than what he's showing currently. I think he lacks so much confidence when he's on the ball. I see that. I see what he's trying to do, but he's not really able to do it in certain moments. But he grew into the game a little bit, but he still could have done much better. But good decision from the manager, as I said. And then Enzo Fernandez with the goal. That was a striker's goal, a striker's instinct, the way he moved inside the penalty box. I think right now, when it comes to midfielders attacking the area, we talk of Nico O'Reilly, his box crashing abilities. For example, Jude Bellingham in his first season at Madrid, the way he arrived in the box, I think Enzo Fernandez has really improved in terms of how he arrives in the box, how he attacks when he arrives in the box. He has that predator's instinct. So it was very good that he was able to get the goal. But Leeds United didn't really pose any real threat. I think the best chance of the game was Aronson had a 1v1, but Robert Sanchez was able to save that goal. And that is how the game ultimately ended. Tosin and then Adarabayu, Tosin and Chaluba also did well in terms of when Leeds United were trying to go long to Dominic Cavallo, and they did well in marshalling him and making sure he didn't win duels for Leeds United to gain control and win those second balls and try to attack them. So it was a good display from them defensively. And then attackingly, I mean, for the first time in 6 games now, they finally scored a goal, and then now they are into the FA Cup final. So I'll be looking forward to that if he
So
can
apart
sign.
from the before we go, apart from the changes the manager, um, the interim manager of Chelsea made
Yeah.
in the game, what did he change formationally or strategically or in terms of instruction that you saw from what Chelsea had been doing in their last sort of 4 to 5 games?
Yeah, I thought the major thing was control. And I think that is why Romeo Lavia started that game. He wanted control. He didn't want the game to be so messy. He didn't want the game to be end to end. He wanted Chelsea to have a lot of control in terms of possessing the ball. And then, I mean, it was just about doing the basics right, having intensity in the game, and then every player making sure they get the best out of it, every player in every position. So that is why I think he opted not to play Cole Palmer, but to play Lavia Caicedo so that they can have that sort of solidity in front of the back four. And then even when Dominic Calvert-Lewin is able to win those first balls, the second balls, because the second balls, when the second balls drop, Chelsea will have enough numbers behind the ball. Because Joao Pedro will also he will also drop and then try to overload the midfield area. So I think it was more to do with the basics, getting the basics right, being solid defensively, and having enough in attacking areas to get the goal. And that is what ultimately happened. So I thought it was an improvement from the game that they played against Brighton. There was a lot more fight, a lot more running, a lot more intensity in their game. Pedro Neto also did well on the right hand side in terms of his intensity in the play. And for once, for a few months now, I thought Caicedo had a very, very good game, not just off the ball in terms of his tackling and interceptions, but on the ball, he was able to create a fair few chances for Chelsea in attack. So I thought that was an improvement from the interim manager.
Okay, so it seems that we are going to see some improvement in Chelsea from now till the end of the season,
Yeah.
based on what we've seen in this particular game. And hopefully that is not to the detriment of Liverpool. Hopefully we'll keep also getting points on the board to prevent Chelsea from getting the 5th place. So this is where we end the pod. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new here. Also, like the video, comment down below, let us know where you are watching the pod from, and we'll catch you later. See you.